I'm not centered. Hold on. That's better. Hey guys, welcome to another live show, another live She Knows Arsenal. Make sure you guys are liking the video and subscribing to the channel. And most importantly, getting into the chat and letting me know what you guys are thinking and feeling. It's international break, so there's not a whole lot to talk about, but I did grab some little tidbits, some things on Twitter that people are discussing, some debates, and I thought I'd bring it to the channel so we can discuss it ourselves and really get into the nitty-gritty. So yeah, on today's show, I do want to discuss this little bit that's flying around on Twitter about people suggesting that Kai Havertz is a better striker than Victor Gyokeres and that he is flopping. It has flopped. It's over. It was a bad signing, and that maybe Gyokeres can play in the small games, but Kai Havertz is our big game player, and we must have him. I also want to discuss what Theo Walcott said, I think, on Sky Sports about Arteta needing to release the handbrake. And there's also been a little bit of discourse around Berta, what his role is. And, I want to discuss that too. So make sure you guys are smashing the likes and getting into the chat. Let's see. Jordy says, let's go. Smash the likes on your way in. We're going to find out. Clock and Jay says, hey Jess, hello to you as well. International break sucks, especially when you are going into an international break on a loss, because there's no like cool clips to watch. It's very down and that kind of stuff. So yeah, it does suck. Hey everyone, hope you guys are doing well during international break. Arteta needs to figure out a way to get the best out of Gyokeres. Been thrown in the deep end and expected to figure it out himself. There's a clip floating around where Eze makes a pass to Odegaard, and Odegaard plays a beautiful ball to Gyokeres, who gets caught flat-footed. Havertz would have anticipated that, but would have scuffed the shot. Interesting. Let's see. What jersey is that, Jess? Is that a Brazil 2002? I do think it is a Brazil 2002. It's really big, so it actually doesn't fit. But when I found it, I just could not get it. And then it has, I don't know if you guys can see it or not, but it's R9. So it's R9. So I wear it around the house because it's massive, but it was so nice. I couldn't not get it. But I remember that moment in the game. So here's the thing. I'm not just going to outright just say there's no validity to this whatsoever, just because I feel like, Gyokeres needs more time. I would say that anybody who just joined us and has only played 3 games needs more time, 3 professional games for us, and didn't really have a full preseason. But I would be lying to you guys if I said that I didn't have some concerns. And I think my concerns mostly gravitate around what my initial concerns about the signing would be before, when we were kind of in that before we actually went for Gyokeres, and there was like rumors about Sesko versus Gyokeres. One of the things I kept drawing on was the fact that he wasn't a clean fit, meaning that his style of play and what he's good at and what the conditions in which he thrives in are not necessarily the conditions in which we create for our current strikers. Since Arteta has been manager, he has preferred a facilitator center forward. That goes from everyone from Lacazette to Gabriel Jesus to Kai Havertz. Not a single one of those players played as a traditional number 9. And Gyokeres is not somebody that is going to be able to transform into that. So Arsenal have to change the way that they play in order for Gyokeres to do well. Have I been a little bit underwhelmed by maybe Gyokeres's agility and his ability to get onto things? Has he looked slow and clunky? Yes. But he wouldn't be the first slower, clunkier striker to play in the Premier League. You still have to play to his strengths. And so one of the red flags for me in the Liverpool game was that the entire game was based around Gyokeres posting up, winning the, holding the ball up and doing a wall pass to someone else, or setting up Timber, setting up Calafiori. it was so akin to the way that Kai Havertz plays, which does make me think that Arteta is going to prefer Kai Havertz in the bigger games, and Gyokeres is going to be used for the small games. Had Kai Havertz been fit, he probably would have played this game. He probably would have played this game because the way that Arteta didn't say, well, I'm going to play with Gyokeres, so we're going to change our system to suit him and play to his strengths. He said, this is how I was going to play against Liverpool, so you need to mold yourself to basically be Kai Havertz. And I think I think Gyokeres struggled with that because he's just not a facilitator at all. And so I am getting some red flags or some slight, alarm bells ringing in my ear, because I think if the scenario that Arsenal are in requires Kai Havertz, and Kai Havertz is our best option at center forward, then that's not suitable. Kai Havertz has been our number one striker for 2 seasons, and it hasn't been enough. So even if Gyokeres is not the right one and Kai Havertz is better than him, that's still not the situation that we should be in 2025. We should have a starting striker that hits all of the notes, for us. And so I understand why these conversations are being had, because remember, when we signed Gyokeres, it was split. It was almost like 50-50. There is a large contingent of our fan base that did not want Gyokeres. They did not want him. So they were waiting on him to fail. When he scored the goal against Bilbao, they were choking because they had said that he's so bad in the air, he'll never be able to score a goal with his head. So he has enemies. He has enemies. And so I'm not surprised that after what would people probably consider an underwhelming / poor performance against Liverpool, that they're going back to their original narrative about him not being good enough, not suiting our style of play, not being good enough for the Prem. And so there's conversations being had. I don't really want to be in a situation. This is a personal thing for me. I don't really want to be in a situation where we have one striker that's better for the big games and then one striker that's better for the small games. I don't necessarily feel like that's the situation that we should be in after spending so much on 2 players. I think we should have one striker that's just our best for every single scenario, but maybe that's not in the situation that we're in right now. But one thing I will say about Kai Havertz is that his brand, his star, his pedestal is always so much higher. His brand grows so much. His star shines more when he's not playing. When he's not playing, he's world class. When he is playing, and the reality of having a player like him up front is right in front of us, you can see that he's limited as well. So maybe neither one of them are the real solution, but I want to at least give Gyokeres an opportunity to have the team tailored to him scoring goals. But Arteta going into games and saying, Gyokeres, you need to be more like Kai Havertz, rather than saying, okay, we're going to play to Gyokeres so that Gyokeres can score in these big games, makes me feel like Arteta is going to play Kai Havertz in big games. He is going to be playing, if he was fit, at the Etihad. He's going to be playing at Newcastle. So we can play this way where we are sitting back, we are pressing, we're off the ball, and we're trying to get the ball into the box and head the ball in the back of the net. And I don't necessarily want to play that way against the better sides. I think it's anti-football. It's not really the way that you want to play. You want to assert yourself, and there's never really a time where Kai Havertz plays up front for us in big games where I feel like we're asserting ourselves. It always feels like we are trying to defend. Kai Havertz is preferred to most players because of what he can do off the ball, just like Martinelli. And so for once, I just want to prioritize players and what they do on the ball rather than players and what they do off the ball, because it just feels reductive at this point. But let me read some of your guys' comments. David says, Arsenal need a manager that seeks to get the best out of his attackers. Stop making excuses for Havertz, who flopped in the position he was bought to play at. Havertz single-handedly knocked us out of the FA Cup. I don't even entertain them because it's just blatant shamelessness. He had no service. Haaland would have had the exact same game, and he's the best striker at the moment. Havertz 10 chances can score 1, but Gyokeres is a finisher. Jess, we had plenty of opportunities to pass to Gyokeres, but the players behind could not execute. How are we talking like this? Okay. Listen to what I'm saying, though. Like, I'm not necessarily agreeing with them at all. I don't think he got enough service. And I think it's weird to write somebody off after 3 games, which is what I said right at the beginning. But my concern is not about Gyokeres at all. My concern is that we're not playing to his strengths at all. And we went into a big game, reverting back to Havertz' big game play that was meant to get us a draw. And I do still believe that had Odegaard been fully fit, Marino would have started up front, because Arteta was he's not somebody he likes his big game model, because his big game model keeps the game tight and gives us the opportunity to nick a draw or maybe nick a win if we get lucky. He doesn't want to play the game where his attackers are being platformed and we're being aggressive. He doesn't want to play that way. Everything about what we have done since we bought Kai Havertz in that window has been about being safe, being cautious, being good off the ball, and defending. And Gyokeres is probably the type of player that's going to, if you play to his strengths, maybe leaves you a little bit more open, maybe you play more aggressive, and that's just not how we play in big games, which is why people are concerned about, or maybe disappointed in the way that we set up against Liverpool. People who slander Gyokeres majorly, majority of them are fans who like Arteta positive fans. Gyokeres is 40 times better than Havertz. It's only Arteta that doesn't want to use him properly. I'm a big fan of Kai because he has the ability to control the ball and make the front 3 better, except the poor finishing. Sesko fit Arteta's philosophy better and would have been a better signing. I mean, what does Kai and his ability to control the ball and make the front 3 better, how close has that gotten us to winning stuff? Because I just feel like we're capped to a certain extent. I feel like there's a cap on Arsenal with Kai Havertz at center forward. And as much as I love Rice at left center mid, or playing 2 DMs in midfield, because those two signings are very much so built around Arsenal not dominating on the ball. It's about us dominating out of possession, being defensively solid. And there's a huge trade-off with those players in possession because of the way that those positions function and the lack of technical quality that they do have in comparison to the players that they replaced. And so I do understand that, Kai makes everyone better, but that's still not good enough to get us over the line. He can make Saka better, he can make whoever better, but we still look toothless in games like this. We would not have looked more dangerous had Kai been out there. Kai has played in big games away at Newcastle, at the Etihad, and at Liverpool, and has done nothing, so I'm not quite sure if we're getting better with Kai. I just think it's different. It's just different. And we're capped. We're so capped as an attacking unit with too many players in the team whose main quality in those positions is to be good off the ball. Until we get to the point where we're prioritizing what we can do to attack people, not what we can do to stop the other team, we'll be much better as an attacking unit. But we have 2 or 3 players in attack whose main job or main role is to facilitate or be good off the ball or defend. And that's why basically our attack is Saka and Odegaard trying to get it down, shoveling it down the right-hand side and hoping to get something. Lewis Skelly needs to play as a left 8 against lower level teams. This narrative of Kai defense is starting to annoy. We saw he was shit in Chelsea. We overpaid and gave him the highest salary, and he still failed as a center mid who he was supposed to be. I feel like the whole Sesko would have been a better signing thing is a bit extreme. Arteta doesn't know how to get the best out of attackers, but let's give it 10 games. I think ultimately, with the Sesko thing is that Sesko's main issue wasn't that I didn't think that he was a good fit tactically. I just think that he's raw, which we've seen at United. He is raw, but that would have meant that the plan with Sesko was for Kai Havertz to continue to start. And now the plan with Gyokeres is that Gyokeres will play the small games and Kai Havertz would have been playing the bigger games had he had been fit. So I just think there's a small difference there. But Sesko is a more clean fit in terms of what we try to do, because he can just hold up the ball, knock it back to other people, and then get into the box and get on the end of headers. That's all really Kai Havertz does. Kai Havertz is not somebody that, we look to, to get the ball and break lines with his dribbling or anything. He's keeps it very simple. He keeps the ball or he flicks it on into the channel for Saka or whoever else is running off of him, and then he gets into the box, and then we try to hit him on corners or crosses. That's pretty much what the game is, or he tries to float into the channels to open up space for us to create chances for Declan Rice or fullbacks or whoever is running onto the ball. That's something that Sesko could probably do, but Gyokeres' whole game is about running into the channels off of the back line and, playing on transition. So it's completely different. Even if Sesko would have been a better fit, if the end result is that Kai Havertz is our best striker, it's still a failure for me, because we went into this transfer window knowing that Kai Havertz was not good enough to be Arsenal's number one striker. So even if you get your little agenda off on Gyokeres and say, yeah, well, I was right, Kai Havertz is better and he's worse, you still lost, because we went into the window knowing that we needed a better striker. And if the end result of this window is that Kai Havertz is better, then we failed. As a club, and in what's most important, we have failed. Kai Havertz being our best striker is a failure. We are not winning with Kai Havertz as our main striker. And we know that because we've been playing with him as our main striker for 2 seasons now. I'm just happy we got all the depth we need this summer. So next summer we can get an actual creative 8 and start left wing and 9. Gyokeres is the literal opposite of Arteta's haram football system. Under a less cowardly manager, Gyokeres cooks. I'm not even trying to do like a Emery thing, but I actually think Gyokeres will play really well under Emery, because everything about the way that Emery platforms his attackers is about letting them run into channels, they're like big attacking moves. They're not really about intricacies, and they can do the little tiki-taka here and there, but I do think Gyokeres would do well for Emery or somebody like that. But with Arteta being so desperate to play a style of football where the center forward is a facilitator, Gyokeres is going to have to do way too much melding to what we're trying to do, rather than us just saying, you know what, fuck it. Let's just lean into Gyokeres and let him be the person that we know he is. It's capping us. We need to focus on getting the most out of Gyokeres, not him learning our system that, like, why are we holding on to the system? I don't really believe in a system that makes the center forward create chances for fullbacks and DMs, because that's essentially what our system has been. Kai Havertz gets the ball and he knocks the ball back to Declan Rice or Calafiori or whatever left back is back there. And I'd prefer our striker to be the one that's getting the chances, but hey, whatever. If wingers, midfielders, and if wingers, midfielders, the likes of Odegaard, Zubimendi can't supply Gyokeres with killer passes, how do you rant here Gyokeres is not a better striker? Arsenal fans learn to be patient. Why did Mikel get Gyokeres knowing well he's not ready to change the way we play defeats me? I mean, what we know for sure is that Arteta was not interested in changing the way that we play against Liverpool. He kind of tried it against United, but we got caught in the basketball game. And I think maybe that could have shook him up a little bit as well. That we went to a big ground and we tried to do the basketball game. We tried to play more direct. And because we didn't execute it well enough, we ended up in situations where we had to defend a lot more. We were getting broken down pretty easily. And so maybe he decided when we went to Liverpool, he couldn't risk it and went back to type. What we did against Liverpool was very much so everything that we've been doing. The only difference is it wasn't Kai Havertz, it was Gyokeres, who is less likely to be successful in that environment. We have changed. The players weren't there to execute it. Arteta didn't want Gyokeres. Wait, what players weren't there to execute it? If you mean Eze, I kind of get that aspect of things, but I still feel like if you watch some of the clips from our game against Liverpool, even without Odegaard or without Eze, because I think that's who you're talking about, without those two players, there were times where Declan Rice got the ball, where Zubamendi got the ball, where Marino got the ball, where Martinelli got the ball. And they just looked at Gyokeres and said, actually, let's play it safe, turn backwards, and pass it back. Some of our passing in that first half was so ponderous and so like, la, 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 la. It was so hard to watch, but that's Arsenal. And to be honest, how much longer are we going to accept, or we have to accept whatever because we can't change Mikel, but our playing style is so heavily dependent on individuals and we can't replicate any of the things that we try to do without certain people available, because if our system is just based on individuals, it's not that good of a system. It's not that good of a system. If we can't play our best, or like not really our best, but like we can't play the same brand of football, it's not really that good of a system to me. You know, I think we're in a place now where if we don't have Saka or Odegaard's not available, we have our perfect excuse for why we can't pass forward. You know, we have the perfect excuse why we can't even attempt to try to pass it in behind. We have the perfect excuse why we can't get it to Madueke over and over again. We have the perfect excuse why we can't create a chance. And so is it the case that, you know, the system is just so heavily based upon individuals and that's just normal? Or is it that the system is just not really that good because Arteta can't get it working or get those patterns of play or that ethos or that philosophy with other players? You know, because I get that your system is not going to function exactly the same without the same quality, but the fact that we can't even muster a chance and it's acceptable because certain players were not on the pitch feels like we're making excuses rather than looking at the manager and saying, why is it the case that if Saka's not on the pitch, all of a sudden you can't do anything? That doesn't make sense to me. And that also relieves responsibility from your very expensive signings in Declan Rice and Zubamendi from, you know, actually doing what we're supposed to be doing. Declan Rice and Zubamendi are good enough players to find a pass into the channel for Madueke and Gyokeres. I don't want to hear that they can't do it because Saka's not on the pitch. I believe in Gyokeres. I wanted him because it forces us to improve our creativity for our forwards. I wanted us to be more direct and threat on transition. This shows Arteta is a poor attacking manager. We're going to get into the quotes from Theo Walcott because I think ultimately if people don't hear it from people that they like, then they need to hear it from people that they know have good intentions. And we know that Theo Walcott has good intentions. He is, to me, a mini righty in that way where he's always kind of supportive and he stands up for us in certain circumstances where he's surrounded by people that are attacking, but I also think he's really honest. Our problem is mentality issues where players don't take opportunities at difficult occasions. Only Saka, Trossard do that, and we have Eze now. Let me turn on the fan real quick. And let's see. Is the window? Yeah. Because with all these lights on, I already know it's about to be like 5,000 degrees in here in like 2 seconds. But our mentality issues where players don't take opportunities at difficult occasions. Only Saka and Trossard do, and we have Eze now. All right. I hear that as well. Sorry, we just needed to like fix ourselves for a second. Yeah, that's good enough. All right, so Osmond says Havertz is amazing with hold up and position, but chance creation is not good enough since the Havertz signing plus Zinchenko, Xhaka, and Jesus replaced by a center back, left back, a DM, and a tall number 9. And I think, we've spoke about this on the channel a lot, but I cannot express to you how obvious it is that the dynamics in this team have changed. And we, to a certain extent, cannot really play the same way that we did in 22-23 because the technical quality of these players has changed. I'm not saying that Calafiori and MLS are not technical players, but there's a significant difference between Zinchenko and those two players. There's a big gulf in I think, let's not say quality, but in terms of profile between Xhaka and Declan Rice. One of the big things with the big differences between Declan Rice and Xhaka is not so much just the technical quality, it's the fact that one is left-footed and one is right-footed. And when you watch Xhaka, it's so easy for him to pop the pass in behind the, fullback and center back on that side. It's easy for him to put in a left half space cross. Rice is not giving you any of those things, so you've lost a couple of different passes that you just can't get off anymore. And then obviously one of the bigger ones is Gabriel Jesus. As much as Gabriel Jesus needs to maybe pack his bags and find somewhere else to play, it cannot be understated how different you're going to be when you switch, your center forward from Gabriel Jesus to Kai Havertz. They're two completely different players, and there's just not anything that, it's just nothing similar really about the two players at all. So there has been a big change, and the chance creation has dried up a lot because now you just don't have the same types of dynamics, and Arteta hasn't fixed it yet. And it's not that I'm saying that we cannot create chances with these players. I just think we have to approach it differently, potentially. No big clubs will continue with Martinelli on left wing after what we have been proven right from last season. Yeah. Jesus had the highest peak an Arsenal player had since Sanchez, better than Saka and Abba, in my opinion. Let's see. Berta knows what he's doing, giving Arteta, Gyokeres, and Eze sink or swim. Yeah, I mean, I hear that for sure. But, at the end of the day, Gyokeres still needs time, and I just feel like there needs to be an element of reality that he's only played 3 real games for us, and in 2 of those, actually, not a single chance has been created for him in any of those 3 games. Not a good chance. You cannot say that an Arsenal player has put the ball on a plate for Gyokeres and he just missed a chance. I think maybe you could give Zubimendi the chance that he kind of created by pressing the Leeds player, and then Gyokeres kind of he swung at the ball and missed that chance against Leeds. But outside of that, which was more like a high pressure kind of chance, I've not seen a single player pass the ball to Gyokeres in a situation where all he has to do is take a touch and put it in the back of the net. I've not seen that yet. And so until I see that, I'm just going to feel like we're wasting him, you know? Fax Gyokeres hardly misses clear chances. Both of Arsenal's open play goals come from individual magic. Saka puts it in the top corner with a weaker foot, and Gyokeres takes it from halfway line and scores. Everything else is corners and penalties. That finish against Leeds was world class. I'm just wondering, you know, how anybody could watch Gyokeres play and completely write him off, off of what we've seen so far. But this was my fear with Gyokeres, was that Arteta was going to struggle to get the best from Gyokeres, and force these players to kick the ball to him. Now, we've still yet to see a consistent front 3 of Eze, Saka, or even Madueke with Gyokeres. And so against Nottingham Forest, Arteta needs to stop fucking around. Just drop Martinelli, cut the bullshit. Just put Eze on the left. If Odegaard will probably be fit by then, he played well enough, against Liverpool. So you'll have Odegaard, you'll have Eze, and you'll either have Saka or Madueke. That is enough. Those are enough quality players, and they need to. The conversation before the game needs to be put the ball in for Gyokeres or come off of the pitch. period. Put the ball on a plate for Gyokeres or come off of the pitch. If you don't, you're getting subbed out, and I'll find somebody who can. They need to start putting the ball in for Gyokeres. If you hesitate and turn backwards and don't kick the ball into the channel for Gyokeres, I'd rather Gyokeres miss the chance than him not get the chance at all. So moving forward, that's probably what we need to see. But also the reality is Kai Havertz isn't going to be fit for probably 2 or 3 months if we're lucky. So there's all this chat about Havertz plays in the big games and Gyokeres plays in the small games. He's not playing. So the whole game plan is around Gyokeres right now, so we need to, just figure it out. Exactly, like RVP in United, apparently Sir Alex was subbing Rooney and co. if they didn't pass to RVP. Exactly, that should be how we're addressing this. I think Arsenal has a problem trusting Gyokeres, or is it just me? I don't know if it's a problem necessarily trusting him. I just think when you've spent maybe 2 or 3 or even maybe 4 seasons playing with center forwards that you're not setting them up. They're actually facilitating for Saka or Martinelli or whoever. They're having a difficult time with the manager departing from that way of play under pressure. If we were a mid-table side and we knew we were going to finish somewhere mid-table and we didn't have aspirations of winning the Premier League and the Champions League, you could probably do this transition a lot easier because there's not as many eyes on you. But everybody was watching us against Liverpool, and Arteta didn't have his comfort blanket in Kai Havertz. And so instead of being like, okay, we're going to do like what we did against United, but I just need you guys to execute those passes better, he said, let's go back to plan A, which was always the plan A to begin with. Let's play slow. Let's keep it compact. Let's not be too risky. And when you get the ball, Gyokeres, you're going to knock it back to your teammates. And if you get into the final third, you're going to make this run. And when you get into the half space, you're going to kick it back for Timber or Calafiori to put the ball in the back of the net, which is exactly how Kai would have played in that game. I would sell Eze, Rice, and Odegaard just to have Fabregas. Martinelli is the issue, not anyone else. Replace him and we win the league. He is done. I can't stand him anymore. I want to ask, there's also been some well, if you feel like Gyokeres is not being platformed correctly, then you shouldn't have anything to say about Martinelli because that's basically been his problem for 2 years. What do you guys think about that? If you have hate for Martinelli, out of it. Is there a point, is that a decent point to be made? That if you feel like Gyokeres is not being platformed correctly, then should we be as harsh as we've been on Martinelli? Because he's pretty much a similar player where he has to play on the counter, he needs big spaces, and players need to set him up for chances. And I have to be honest, I don't really think that we play to set Martinelli up. I think Martinelli is now in a situation where we play and he's meant to be setting up other people. And so unlike when he was playing with Jesus, where he was getting on the end of these moves and just tapping the ball in, he's not really getting those opportunities anymore. So is it the case that maybe we're a little bit too harsh on Martinelli? I don't actually think that that's that bad of a take. Now, that doesn't actually mean that Martinelli his form has not dropped off of a cliff as well. I don't think that even in the best circumstances that Martinelli could do what Gyokeres did, which was just take the ball and just kick it in the back of the net. Martinelli is done in that way. But he's a type of player that's kind of a finisher as well. He's not somebody that's going to facilitate for other people. And he's being asked to do that and he's failing. Are we being harsh? Are we not? Because I think what it is that some people have a difficult time admitting that, or feeling like if they admit that maybe it's not all that player's fault, that they're wrong for wanting them gone. But I think two things can be true at the same time, that you don't think that Martinelli is good enough to play for Arsenal, but there's also a world where Arteta has kind of thrown him under the bus as well by not playing to his strengths, but then also not bringing in a player 2 years ago that plays to those strengths so that Martinelli's not playing in this circumstance for 2 years. Just getting worse and worse and worse. That run Sunday he did. How do you defend that? Eze is better than Martinelli for sure. Of course he is. Listen, Pepe was that type of player, a counterattacker who needed space to run into. And look how he did in the Prem. This is not the league for that kind of players anymore. It's not going to work. I actually disagree because the Premier League is basically the Premisliga. This league is not based around possession, slow possession, juga de position, slow build up possession. The best teams in this league know how to counterattack, and it's a counterattack heavy league. It is. Outside of us and Chelsea and Manchester City, everybody else counters. Liverpool, Newcastle, United, everybody counterattacks. Bournemouth, everyone counters. Brentford, everyone counters. So actually, Crystal Palace is really good at it as well. This whole idea that the Premier League is not good for counterattacking players is solely based on the fact that it's not good for Arsenal. Arsenal are not good for counterattacking players. This league is built for teams that know how to manufacture counterattacks and have quick and pacey players that can get in behind back lines and put the ball in the back of the net. Why do you know that? Because every team that plays like that against us fucks us up. Every single team that plays that way blams us. Every single team that plays that way understands how to beat Arsenal because this is what the league is. People play high lines and get done on the counter every single day. Every single day in this league. The one thing that Arsenal do not have that other teams have is that even if they're possession-based sides, they know how to counterattack. We're the only team that doesn't know how to. So it's not so much about counterattacking doesn't work in this league. It doesn't work at Arsenal. It doesn't. It's okay to be like a mid-table player. That's what he is. He just plays for a top team. Martinelli ruins our counterattacks. There's a 12-minute clip of 24-25 alone where he ruins our counters. Martinelli's decision-making is so poor, even in basic stuff, which is frustrating. He has not developed as a player. Let's see. Chelsea does counter. I'm not saying that they don't counter. I'm saying that primarily Chelsea, you would consider them a possession-based side. The way that they set up is usually based around them controlling possession. They're not as hell-bent on it like City and Arsenal are, but they are a possession-based side that tries to they sit on the halfway line and try to kind of do what we do. The difference between us and Chelsea is that they have people that can execute on the counterattack better than we do. But just because you're primarily a possession-based side doesn't mean that you cannot counterattack. That only applies to Arsenal. It doesn't apply to anyone else. Our fastest player to expose the counters is our worst player on the team. We also have we will also be terrible at counters. Let's see. That's true. Liverpool counterattack all the time, even against lower table teams. They always give you space at times. Our transition ball is rubbish. Yeah, I don't really understand this whole idea that the Premier League is not built around counterattacks. It is. Like, obviously, the game has changed quite a bit in like maybe the last, let's call it 12 to 18 months. Like a couple of seasons ago, everybody was trying to replicate what Arsenal/City were doing, where they were getting inverted left backs and playing slow possession-based football, but not everybody can replicate it. So you had a couple of coaches come in here like, Thomas Frank and Iriola and Slot and different managers kind of like that have implemented counterattacking systems. And because the defending is so bad in the Premier League and everybody wants to play good football, it's opened up opportunities for teams to play on the counterattack a lot more. So this is a counterattacking league. If Gyokeres played for Villa, he would not struggle. He wouldn't. If he played for Newcastle, he probably wouldn't struggle either, because Alanga and Gordon would just kick the ball in behind for him and he would just run into the box. Like, it's more about us. We don't know how to counter. Literally none of the other teams apart from Liverpool have won a title, though. You just named City and Chelsea, who have won the most titles in 20 years. Fair enough, but who won the title last season? I'm talking about what the Premier League is right this moment. So whether or not we won titles, we played way different back in the day. Football goes in footballing cycles. So I understand what you're kind of trying to say, but ultimately my point still stands, and it's still right that this league is built upon counterattacks in 2025, which is all that matters in regards to Gyokeres. because Arsenal, to be honest, are not going to be able to replicate that level of possession-based football that City had in a couple seasons ago. So us trying to replicate it now under some sort, like, well, City won this way, so we should win this way, doesn't make sense when the league has moved on from that for about 12 to 18 months now. Like, that doesn't really matter at all. Our style of play is almost, it's like pretty much expired. Nobody plays like that anymore. Not the good teams anyway. Not the teams that are scoring a lot of goals. Not the teams that could actually score goals against Liverpool. None of them are playing like that. Newcastle and Bournemouth weren't intimidated of Liverpool despite they both lost. We weren't good enough. And actually, let me pull up something because I thought about bringing it up today just to, because I know we talk about it. But this whole like desperation to back the way that we play, just because I think people don't want to admit that maybe we should play differently. It just feels like you're just trying too hard. Let's see. The way that we play, not only did we not perfect it enough to win anything, but now everybody else has moved on. We should move on as well. Let's see. So we created at Anfield, we created, I want to say 0.5 XG expected goals. So that even includes, that's not even non-penalty XG, so it's even lower than that. Bournemouth created 1.7 expected goals at Anfield. 1.7. They almost created 2 goals. They scored 2 goals, but they almost created 2 goals worth of XG at Anfield against Liverpool. We created 0.5. Let me just check that because it could be lower. And don't even, like, if we're going to try to sit here and act like Bournemouth have a better attack than us, then fair enough. But they don't. They don't. Yeah, we created 0.49 XG against Liverpool. We need to change our style of play, and more importantly, not even just talking about Gyokeres, because Gyokeres is separate, really, because Gyokeres is a new player and we already knew we were going to have to change things. But we've been talking about changing things and platforming our existing attackers better for about 2 years now. So, maybe there's something to be said that Arsenal need to, or Mikel in particular, needs to look at our attack and figure out ways to just highlight what they do best and not be so beholden to a system that creates low quality chances for fullbacks and DMs. Let's see. People don't clock Liverpool by now. Liverpool don't care about any other stat except for putting the ball in the net. Slot does not care about how much passes they can make and make in a row sideways and backward. 5 attackers, not 4 attackers. It's fixed. People acting like we only throw long balls for 90 minutes have an agenda. We don't. I don't want to. I'm not saying that. I think that, like, the Stoke FC and all that type of stuff is a little bit overblown. Like, obviously people are bantering us, and we do lean into corners and throw-ins and stuff probably a little bit too much for my liking. But we don't only do those things. We don't only do those things. But we definitely do not play good football. I think it's, if you had to choose a team to play or watch, not play, but watch right now, we would not be one of those teams for a neutral. And as an Arsenal fan, I don't even really like watching us play. And of course, like, winning is the most important thing, but we're also not winning trophies. So when you're not winning, ultimately you're going to go back to it and say, well, I'm at least enjoying watching us play. And I don't, because we don't create enough chances. We don't score enough goals. Most of our goals come, if we do score, sometimes it does come off of like second chances off of corners, and we score long corners. And if we were winning, I could understand it more, but we're not. So you can't expect people to just like love the way that we're playing. We're not necessarily trying. the Stoke FC might be a little bit too far, but like we don't necessarily play good football either. Like I would not when Arsenal is becoming synonymous with anti-football, it's time to look at ourselves, you know. Um I feel like we have a coach like if we had a coach like Hansi Flick, we would have a big chance of winning the treble this season. Well, Arteta needs to change quick, I think, but maybe that's just me. All right, let's see. So I don't want to hear this. This says Arsenal's coaching staff conducted a 2-season audit of league losses, uncovering a hidden pattern behind dropping points in easy fixtures. Berta activated a targeted rebuild, signing profiles Arteta viewed as essential to fix structural gaps, hence Subamendi and Gyokeres. Well, play to Gyokeres' strengths then. Like, I don't want to hear that if Gyokeres is not getting any chances. So it was on Sky Sports, and Theo Walcott was talking to Roy Keane and those guys about the game. And Roy Keane, of course, said Arsenal's attacking play just wasn't good enough. Their forwards have to take risks. And well, Theo Walcott said their forwards have to take risks, right? And that definitely echoes what we heard from, Peter Schmeichel said it, but he said it in like a really snarky, nasty way. Like you expect somebody like him to say it. Like I did not, what did he say? Like, I've never wanted a team to win more than Liverpool because only one team came to play. And then, you had like Jamie Carragher saying like pretty much like something similar that we didn't come to win and, we didn't take any risks. And then you had, Petit, also chiming in and Ljungberg. How many people need to tell you something before you start to listen? Because it's not just people that we don't like. I can understand when we were being called emotional and over celebrating by Carragher and Neville, but like nobody else was really saying it outside of people that just don't like Arsenal. But you have people that love Arsenal to death, like Freddie and Theo Walcott saying these things. But you also have maybe more, pessimistic or rude people saying it. But you have to at least acknowledge the fact that there's some people that love the club that are like, the attack needs to take more risks. We need to actually play to win. You need to get your attackers going. You need to give them freedom. And maybe this doesn't matter to some people, but it matters a little bit less to me than maybe some of the maybe more Emirates era fans. Like I started watching Arsenal a little bit before that. So I actually have a closer connection to, that than the Emirates era of like the 2010s. But especially I know people that grew up in the Emirates era are very attached to a certain style of football. I just want to see good attacking football. It doesn't have to be tiki-taka. It doesn't have to be the most intricate. I just want to see my attackers have a little bit of freedom and score more goals and look like they enjoy playing for Arsenal, just a little bit. Score more goals, take more shots, open teams up, be more aggressive, lock teams in, score more goals from open play, things like that. How many times do you need to hear it before you just accept that we play bad football? We play bad football, and in the end of the day, the best teams play a good brand of football. That doesn't mean that they're playing the best football you ever seen, but they definitely don't play the way that we play. And a lot of it is very simple. 1-2 touches, quick passes, forward into really good attackers, and you just tell the attackers, go do your thing, kind of thing. You set them up in a way where they can get the ball to the players that are best with the ball and are the best available to put the ball in the back of the net. When I'm watching Arsenal and you have your forwards, your striker creating chances for Declan Rice, Timber, and Calafiori, there's no way that makes sense. Like, there's no way that is good football. No way, so I think when you hear that, you have to maybe look at it. I know Arteta won't look at it and think anything because he's not going to listen to the media, but at least look at the football with your eyes. Stop looking at your data sheet. Stop looking at your little data that says you should have scored 1 or 2 goals, but you didn't. watch it with your eyes. There's a reason why people were excited about Eze. It's not just because we got an attacking midfielder, it's because we got somebody that's hopefully going to make the football look better, and I feel like Arteta just lacks that about him. And I just don't see it long for him because, Emery played bad football and the club, or not the club, but the fans turned on him a lot quicker, I think, because he just wasn't Arsenal DNA like at all. But I think people are starting to turn on Mikel as well, because you can see that he just lacks Arsenal DNA, not even just from a playing style perspective, but from a mentality perspective, and he's losing his audience. Agenda has to agenda. If we beat Liverpool, do you think people would criticize Liverpool for 2 weeks? No way. But what does that have to do with our style of play and the fact that we didn't really play to win, though? If, buts, maybes, hypotheticals, but ultimately we lost, and you can't necessarily say that it was an unfair result because we left ourselves exposed to a wonder goal. And unfortunately, Liverpool have that in their locker and we don't, so what does Liverpool losing and getting killed online have to do with the fact that we actually did lose and we didn't actually play to win? I don't, of course the media has a somewhat of an agenda against Arsenal, but we definitely do a good enough part to play into, their narratives, because we don't necessarily ever prove them wrong either. Unfortunately, I hate the agendas. I don't necessarily think that a lot of it is fair, but I can't necessarily say that I disagree with this particular agenda. People are turning on Arteta definitely because against Liverpool, a lot of fans were confident, and the fact he played Marino in midfield and an off-form Martinelli for 70 minutes exposed his cowardice. No problem if Arteta stinks the game. I agree with you, but what I'm highlighting is the bias towards Arsenal. No, I get what you're saying. You were talking about something else. I hear you. Valeria says, why do we need two defensive midfielders on the pitch when we have very good defenders, especially one-on-one? Why don't we trust them more? I don't know. I have no idea, but I think Arteta's trying to account for everything to try to, maximize the opportunity to get a clean sheet. We tried to play in 22-23. We definitely played in the way that you're talking about, where we basically had one DM, which was Thomas Partey, and then Xhaka and Odegaard were just doing their thing pretty much. Like, obviously, Xhaka helped Partey, but it was nowhere near as defensive as what we watched today, because Xhaka is not going to be able to replicate the defensive quality that Declan Rice has. And Xhaka, for all intents and purposes, is actually a center midfielder. He's not a DM. That's why when he played DM for us, he was terrible. So we had basically a 10, an 8, and a 6. And we had a left back basically playing number 10, and we basically left Ramsdale and Saliba and Gabriel by themselves for the most part. And we did probably concede, I would say, maybe 6-7 goals more than we wanted to, because I want to say we're in the 40s. If we had been maybe in the 30s, that would have been a lot better, but more title winning amount of goals conceded. But we've now added Raya and have cut out a lot of the individual mistakes, which in 22-23, a lot of the conversations weren't about our lack of defensive quality. It was more about the individual mistakes that were coming from Ramsdale in particular, and also Zinchenko. So you don't have Zinchenko back there anymore, and you don't have Ramsdale. So you've cut out some of that stuff. So why can't you leave those players alone just a little bit more? Because back then it felt like we would put, like, everybody would basically be forward except for Partey, to a certain extent, and the two center backs and the goalkeeper, and of course we had to deal with a lot of like some of the counterattacks that we dealt with in that season were insane, because there were times where we did get lucky. There were times that we got lucky. There was times that we rode our luck. I remember I think it was the game against Everton, and they opened us up like once or twice, and Ramsdale made like these really good saves, but we ended up winning that game 4-0. And nobody thought about those counterattacks that, were dangerous. I don't know why he won't release the defense just a little bit, you know, and allow players to go forward a little bit more, especially I would prefer that if you're going to have 4 center backs and a DM and a good one, that the left center mid is more of an attack-minded player, but Arteta doesn't see it that way. He wants to be more defensively solid than anything. And yeah, 10 Men United at that. You guys are talking about 10 Men United at that. 10 Men United. Oh, that was at home. It's either the league or UCL or he has to go. Let's see. Arteta has PTSD from the 22-23 season. He needs to be confident in the team he's built. This football he's playing is getting exhausting. It's really hard to watch. As much as people, it's like the meme of the girl that's like eating salad and she's acting like she's really enjoying it. I feel like everybody that talks about our football, like it's so interesting and it's so tactically like evolutionary and revolutionary, and they just love it, or just lying. We don't play good football and we're not fun to watch. If we win, you could stomach it, but when we're not winning, and when I mean we're not winning trophies, it's hard. Like it just is. For example, Gyokeres should be laying off balls to teammates more often. He should focus. For example, Gyokeres shouldn't be laying balls off to teammates as often. He should focus on running in behind. I feel like Odegaard should take the 8 back because he controls the midfield better, while Eze is our 10 and Zubimendi takes our 6. Well, Shaka, that would require us to, not drop, but rotate and maybe make decisions based on the teams that we're playing. And I think maybe I could be just galaxy braining it, and overthinking it. But we've spoken about the summer before the 23-24 season and how much that's changed us, and how I think Kai Havertz was the wrong signing, full stop. I think they've made it work and he's serviceable, but he should have never been brought in to play left center mid. But because he failed at it so badly, they decided to use Declan Rice at left center mid instead. And the whole plan was to play Thomas Partey at right back, to play Declan Rice in the DM, to play Kai Havertz at left center mid, Odegaard at right center mid, and Kai was basically going to be like a second striker, and it was going to be the diamond. So when we were in possession, Partey would move up into midfield next to Declan Rice, and it would be the diamond and or the square. And the first 3 games of the season, you could see that it was a terrible idea. Not only that, but Thomas Partey got injured, so we just had to go to something else. And we spent the whole first half of that season trying to make Kai Havertz at left center mid work. And then he gave up on that, put him up front. It just kind of worked out that way. And now Declan has been playing left center mid since then, essentially. And I feel like maybe they've looked at it and thought, we bought 2 players that are versatile, but they're not the perfect players to play in the positions that they were meant to come in and play. And instead of taking the L, they've exacerbated it by continuing on with something that's clunky and doesn't really maximize anything. And we're still trying to make that work. And it's awkward, So of course I would love to play 2 attack-minded midfielders, an 8, a 10, and a 6, but that will require Arteta to maybe even maybe almost admit that he made a mistake, or double down on Declan Rice in the 6. And once he bought Zubimendi, he basically made his bed. So as good of a player as Declan Rice is, I do think him not being Arteta's perfect 6 has kind of made some problems, along with Kai Havertz not being able to play the 8 either. So we're still in need of a left center mid, but we're still persisting with what we're doing now. So it's just awkward, and I don't think Arteta will ever do this either, because he's never going to not play Declan Rice unprovoked. So just like I don't think he's ever not going to play Odegaard unprovoked either. So we're kind of stuck with this midfield into the foreseeable. Unless somebody gets injured, this is what we're going to see. Also, then he also has this weird fetish with Marino, and that's also becoming an issue. This Marino is ahead in the pecking order of the more creative players is becoming a problem. Playing the flat three with Marino and Declan Rice and Zubamendi or whatever it was last season. I think it was Marino, Kai, and maybe Party against Bournemouth. No, no, it's terrible. We should have cashed in on Martinelli. We had Socrates, David Luiz when Arteta started. Doesn't really, I mean, that was like 5 years ago. Let's see. Let me go up. Let's see. Yeah, KDB, Holland, and Pep gave Arteta PTSD since that game. He's changed a lot. You guys literally have an insane squad, and Arteta is the handbrake. That's the sad part is we do have a really good squad, and I don't even really think that, you're flying, Jess. Am I? Am I lying? You said I'm lying, or am I flying? Am I flying or am I lying? But I don't think I'm lying. I've said that this is my take on everything. And so this is what I think happened based on what we saw. We saw Arteta try on the first game of the season against Nottingham Forest. He tried the diamond. And I think what you do early on kind of shows what you want to do. Because we weren't trying to buy more players or anything. It was basically just he had gotten everything that he wanted to get. And he had this idea of playing the diamond and it didn't work. And so he has this £100 million signing. And two things can be true at the same time, that Declan Rice is one of our best players. But him not being the perfect six has exacerbated a problem at left center mid, and him playing there does cap us, in my opinion, when you are not willing to play like 4 excellent attackers and just let them do what they want to do. You basically have like Martinelli, who's like a non-attacker. You have Declan Rice, who's kind of not really like attack-minded player. You have a center forward that's more of a facilitator. You're capped. Like you're just capped at where you're at. I definitely think Nelly should have been sold this season. The more we keep him, the more stocks go down. Well, that's the Arsenal way. You keep him 2 or 3 seasons too late. And then when they were keeping him to, try to keep the, the value high, we won't be able to sell him for more than like 15, 20 million next summer. If anyone comes and gets him. And I don't even think it would be a bad thing if we looked at our inventory of midfielders every single game and just decided on what group makes the most sense. I get that you want to have some consistency, but I don't think playing Zubamendi and Rice is going to suit us in some games. I really do think you're going to have to go with something a little bit more adventurous to get, more attack going, especially when you have like the Martinellis on the left and stuff like that. So yeah, we need to figure out a way to get more attack going. Basically, that's what I'm saying. Because there was also that thing that came out. I don't know if I can find it now and I'm too lazy to look for it now, and whoever said like Theo would get beat up if he said anything different to Keown and stuff on camera. This is a grown ass man. He's not scared to say how he feels. He just agrees with what everybody else is saying, that we don't attack well. I don't know if I can get you guys to see that. Probably not. I probably have to, you guys can't see it at all. Let me send it to myself real quick so I can put it up there on the screen. Sorry. Give me 1 second. All right. It feels like I didn't get any sleep, but I know I did. Awkward. All right. Got the picture. Now I can put it up for you guys. I know some of you guys have seen it. Okay, why won't it let me do it? Give me a hard time. All right. Okay. So what do you guys see here? What do you guys see here? Expected goals from open play, the lowest in the Premier League this season. Why are we down here? Why are we down here? Why are we so low? The thing is we've been low on this list for a couple of seasons now. It hasn't been this bad, but last season we were really poor in open play. And the season prior, at the beginning of the season, it was like that as well. And then when we started scoring goals in the second half of the season, it got a little bit better, but a lot of our goals and a lot of our open play or a lot of our XG was still coming from set pieces. We scored a lot of set pieces in the second half of the season in 23-24 as well. We're going on our third season in a row having questions about why we cannot create chances from open play. Now, we also had those same issues pre 22-23, which is why I think that when I say that Arteta cannot coach an attack, I say it with confidence and with chest. Because if you can only, have a good attack that nobody has any questions about for 1.5 seasons and you've been here for 5, you don't know how to coach a attack. A good coach that knows how to coach an attack will have one bad season. He has 4 bad seasons of attack and one full good one. And the other half that I give him, there was a lot of set pieces in that as well. He cannot coach attack. He does not know how to get the attack scoring the way that we need to in open play, essentially. Now, we focused on set pieces and that helps, but this is unsustainable to me. Like, we need to at some point graduate from this, and it does feel like there's a distinct connection between the boost in open play fluidity and goal scoring and general fun attack that we had in 22-23 and the players that were there. Now that the players are not there and we're playing more, it's the problems that were in 21-22 and 2020 and 2021 have now resurfaced. The horseshoe, the inability to access central spaces, the lack of shots, the lack of clear-cut quality chances. Those were problems in the 2020-21 season and the 21-22 season. I remember distinctly watching and listening a lot of Arsenal Vision podcasts during those two seasons, Arteta's first 2 full seasons, where we finished 8th and when we finished 5th. And Elliot talking ad nauseum about how we don't score goals and how we don't create chances. We had 1 full season in 22-23 where we didn't have any questions about how we were going to score goals. We always felt like we were going to score. We scored a shit ton of goals, whether it was in the 97th minute or the first minute, we were scoring. If we went down, we scored. If we needed a goal in the 90-something minute, we scored. If we needed a goal from Nketiah, we got one. If we needed to go from Reece fucking Nelson, we got one. If we needed to go from Fabio Vieira, we got one. If we lost a game, it wasn't because we didn't have chances. It was just because the other team scored more than we did. We've had one full season of attacking, like good attack, and 4 bad ones. Arteta cannot coach attack, guys. I don't care what the Arteta, whatever you want to call them, say. He's a good defensive coach, but my goodness, he has a blind spot when it comes to attack. And of course, we've only played 3 games, and the excuse will be that we went to Old Trafford and we went to Anfield, but we should have been able to create more than 2 expected goals from open play against Leeds at home, shouldn't we have? So we should still have more than what we should not be on here because we played a bottom feeder in our second game. But we scored 3 goals from set pieces in that game. And like you guys said earlier, the 2 goals that we scored were from, well, I would say the Gyokeres goal was individual brilliance. Like, that didn't have anything to do with anybody creating the chance for him. Maybe the only goal that you could give us anything for is probably the goal that Saka scored, which, came off of like a Ethan kind of running into traffic, Declan winning it back. We turned it over. Zubimendi passes it to Timber. Timber passes it on to Saka. I'm going to save this, and we will the next time that we will look at where we stand with expected goals from open play will be after 10 games. Because I know the excuse right now is going to be that we played against Liverpool, we played against Manchester United, and so those are such hard games that it makes sense that we've created less than 2 expected goals from open play. I've been telling people for 3 years that we fucked up the left side of the pitch and have just now hopefully fixed it with Eze. Lord, he has to do some bandage. Like, he has to be a surgeon to fix that, I would love to know what the context is, for sure. My hope is that Eze, subsequently Odegaard by extension, can work in that zone 14 area. That's going to help a lot. I will say that I do think that a player like Eze will hopefully force us to play more central because that's where he wants to get to. You notice that when even against Liverpool, one of his first touches was coming central. He passed the ball to Odegaard. Odegaard slips it into Gyokeres. Gyokeres moves like a truck. So yeah, maybe, we just need to get, I think from now, we're gonna play Manchester City at home. I really don't want to see there's no real reason to play Martinelli anymore. If Eze is fit, you play Eze, and that's just it. And he needs to find some continuity and some balance and chemistry with his team, because this is his team now. When Saka's not there, he's our best attacker, so he should be prioritized, right? And so Eze should be playing immediately, and hopefully we see a change. Hopefully we can get Gyokeres in some goal scoring opportunities. Hopefully we can get into central spaces. Hopefully we take more shots. But the only person that I saw against Liverpool that was like desperate to get shots off and crosses was Madueke. And that's what he was brought in to do. So I'm hoping that this changes, but I think there's a direct correlation with, playing, it's, focus, not being able to open teams up and access central spaces and things like that, because we still should have been able to create more than 2 open play chances against Leeds. Even if you take the Old Trafford and Anfield out of it, we shouldn't be down here with these teams. We just shouldn't be, Dowman already looks like he's been Arteta-fied. Oh my God. He is no longer being as unpredictable looking. He is second-guessing his decision-making. I haven't necessarily seen that, but I hear you. Martinelli needs to be the boot room scrubbing cleats. He needs to know his role. I just think he needs to be phased out. The fact that Wanyeri got no minutes at Anfield is worrying. Max even played before him. Don't know what's going on. It's dark. I told you guys that, Ethan, I do think that he didn't want to play at right wing anymore. He wanted to play in the middle where his natural position is. And Arteta said, yeah, you can step in for Odegaard, but the fine print was when we're playing against small teams at home, because I'm too afraid to get beat or to concede away from home. And he did exactly what he did last season to Ethan, and it'll only be a matter of time before he's asking for a loan or something like that, because you guys made a big song and dance about him being Odegaard's backup, and the first time that Odegaard doesn't play, here you go, playing Marino of all people. It would be different, I feel like, if he played Eze, because that is just a player that unfortunately Ethan can't really compete with right now. I could kind of understand that. But Marino, that's shocking. Shocking. Our offensive fluidity regresses every season. Either Arteta makes it work or he has to go, because this stat is awful. And like I said, to play ball, I will not show our expected goals from open play again until 10 games, because we will have gotten to play some of the not so great teams. Yeah. Yeah. But until then, I mean, if you're going to hold on to the fact that it's just Old Trafford and it's Anfield, I implore you to look at our open play XG for the last 2 seasons, and I dare you to tell me that there hasn't been a problem, because this is not new news. It's not new news. Fanboys, please explain to me why Marino started. No, you're just wrong and can't handle it. Yeah, you already know what the excuse would be. Saka missed X games, Odegaard missed Y games, etc. Already. It already has started. Like, it's already fucking started with yeah, but we didn't have this player, we didn't have this player. And I'm just like, not having Saka or Odegaard does not justify not creating chances, not even one clean, clear chance against Liverpool. Even if you say that, oh, but Eze's chance, that wasn't even created through our play. That was a ricochet off of Liverpool players that fell nicely into Eze's path. He dribbled into the box and didn't get a shot off. I want to see some sort of interplay between our attackers that opens up a back line. That's what I want to see. Because so far, all of our clear-cut chances, whether they've went in the back of the net or not, have been pretty much individual efforts. I'm just saying. Ethan Wanyeri should learn how to release the ball, because at the Leeds game, he could have passed to Victor Gyokeres a bit, decided to dribble. Listen, I don't disagree that Ethan has shown a little bit of like a reluctancy to release the ball. But one thing I will say about Ethan is when he doesn't release the ball, it's not because he's trying to pass backwards, it's because he's trying to do something. And as a fan base, I feel like we become just as risk averse as the manager, where if we lose the ball or a player tries something and it doesn't come off, you guys want them tarred and feathered. You guys want them put in the guillotine. I remember there were at points last season where Odegaard lost the ball in their half, trying to pass between the lines or something like that. And the timeline went absolutely mental. And I'm like, yeah, but when he passes sideways and keeps it safe, you guys are losing your shit. Guess what? When you try risky shit, sometimes it doesn't come off. Sometimes it doesn't come off. In fact, almost 9 times out of 10, when you try to do something risky, it doesn't come off. But the one time that it does, you're like, oh, I'm glad that he did that. Ethan should not be deterred from trying things, because the reason why he isn't releasing the ball is not because he's trying to be risk averse. It's because he's trying to make things happen. He's trying to access central spaces, which is something that we just cannot seem to get a grip on. So I'm not going to, act like Ethan is holding the ball because he's trying to, to keep it safe. He's trying things because he's the type of player that you want in advanced positions. He's like a number 10 slash, like a forward. And those types of players, when they try stuff, they lose the ball. They lose the ball. It happens. We need to get comfortable with our defenders having to defend. It needs to be the type of thing where old school, you're here to make sure that you give me the ball so I can put the ball in the back of the net and do what I need to do. The defenders are water carriers, right now our defenders are our superstars because our attackers are not our superstars really. It's outside of Saka, but it needs to be the case that the defenders are there to serve the attackers. They're there to keep the game tight. They're there to regain the ball. They're there to give the ball to the attackers so that they can do what they need to do. But right now, everything is built upon, defending the defense, keeping the defense safe, defending our box, defending our goal. Come on. It's risk adverse, not risk averse. Listen, I've been getting that wrong for about 6-7 months now, and I'm probably going to keep getting it wrong. Risk averse, risk adverse. I'm probably going to keep getting it wrong. The problem is that our attackers aren't reliable enough to be both clinical when they take risk and at the same time keep possession from without us being vulnerable on transition. I just don't think we try enough, Ola, to know. I think when I watch us play, it feels like we try something once and then when it doesn't come off, we don't try anything ever again. And I think I can understand more if we were constantly attacking and going down their throats and just pause. But if we were just, kept trying to attack, and they were taking plenty of shots and they were off target, they were taking their man on plenty of times and they weren't getting by them. They were trying to pass between the lines and they just couldn't get through. But often our attackers don't even, outside of Saka, don't even really touch the ball. And when they get it, they just pass backwards. So we don't attack enough, for me to know that they're not reliable enough. I don't know, so maybe we kind of know that with like Kai Havertz and stuff, but with Gyokeres and Eze and Madueke, I'm willing to give them a clean, kind of, start, do your thing. And I'll make conclusions about who you are as an attacker, not based upon what the past attackers were doing, but what you can do. Because I know Martinelli is not particularly reliable, but we only really see our attackers come down the pitch and actually touch the ball a handful of times, in a game. It's rare that, especially in a highly contested game where you can say that we were battering the door down or like beating the door down and just kept going, keep going. And, they just weren't clinical. They just couldn't get past their man. You really just see like Gabriel and Saliba and Declan Rice and Zubamendi and players like that massaging the ball underneath their foot and then turning around and passing backwards. That's true as well, but it says a lot about our attackers' mentality. I think they lose the ball or miss a chance and just recoil into a shell of defensive safety. That could be true as well. I understand that too, that they're also becoming risk adverse by nature because they're afraid to lose the ball as well. And I think there's a collective, and I want to know what you guys think about this well, a collective lack of confidence in our attacking ranks. That one thing it's about getting 3 new attackers is that I'm happy that they don't have that. They don't have that lack of confidence. You saw okay, you guys. The risk averse. You guys know what I'm saying. We don't want to take no risks. Let's say that. We don't want to take any risks. But you saw with Madueke, he didn't have that. Was he successful every single time? No, but you could see that he was up for it. And every single time he went up against Kirkes, he took him on. He didn't pass backwards, not one time. He took them on and tried to get, past his man. And so the beauty of having 3 new attackers is that they haven't played under Mikel Arteta for 3 or 4 seasons. So get them in the game and just let them do their thing and don't infect them with whatever this is that Martinelli and Odegaard and Kai Havertz and them have had, for the last couple seasons, because it's long. I don't want to see that. Are you being not taking risks now by not saying risk adverse because you don't know which one it is? You guys, first of all, I can't trust y'all because you guys don't be telling me the truth. You guys tell me lies and you guys are deceitful and you guys like to see me get things wrong and then twist me up, so we're not taking any risks around here. That's all I'm going to say. If there's a collective attacking failure, it's up to the manager to change that. You can use this as a small, you can use this in the small-sided games in training. Um, Arteta-itis has infected this club. I'm honest, it's a 1,000% averse, not adverse. That guy is wrong. I don't want to say it anymore. We're not taking no risks around here. That's what we're saying. Murder Soccer needs to give Mikal some real bro advice. You're not on the pitch anymore. Players need to bail out the system sometimes. And how many times do we get to the end of a game and say, wow, the defense was really bad, but the attack just scored more, and just bailed the defense out? So rare, that we say that. It's mostly the other way around, that thank God we kept the score low and the defense was so good, because we had to hold on to that one goal, or we couldn't score one at all. So we had to keep the clean sheet to just get the draw. It's very rare that this attack bails out the defense. And I'm hoping that with 3 new attackers, we start to see a new page being flipped. But I don't see this going the right way if Arteta doesn't change, because he's the main culprit. And I'm sorry, as much as people want to, we scored more goals in our history under Mikel. So how do you say that he doesn't know how to coach an attack? We have too many years and too many seasons where we're trying to decipher why we don't look good in attack. So because we scored 91 goals one season, and we scored a lot on set pieces, he couldn't replicate it. So for me, it's doesn't matter if you can only do it once, then it's whatever. Mr. Holiday says, I'm not going to participate in Kai versus Victor Gyokeres debates. They play on the same team, and it's up to our manager to figure out how to best utilize them. And I think that makes a lot of sense. And where I think that Kai definitely at this point in time probably fits the system better. That doesn't have anything to do with Gyokeres, because we're not even seeing him get into the situations that we know that he thrives in. So until I really see that, I just feel like people are jumping the gun. But I think also there was a lot of blowback after Gyokeres scored the header and against Bilbao, and a lot of people that were, putting out content about how Gyokeres wasn't the right signing. He's terrible in the air. He's not going to work. He's going to flop. He's going to that. We're so upset that they were getting called out about that they were waiting for Gyokeres to have some bad games, and then to go back to we should have done this. We should have done that. We told you, we told you, we told you. And I'm just like, you guys were so hell-bent on Kai Havertz getting at least a year to get bedded in. You guys were like, if anybody said anything bad about Kai Havertz, how could you say that? He needs time to adapt. The Gyokeres gets no time to adapt. Zubamendi is also getting treated like he doesn't get any time to adapt. These are 2 players that came from different leagues, but we had to baby Kai Havertz. Raya didn't even get as much time. So it can't be one rule for one for another. We weren't allowed to judge Kai Havertz when he basically missed a wide open goal against Manchester United at home in the season that he came in. That was about 3 games in. Then why are you judging Gyokeres so harshly? Oh, but the ball, it bobbled up, just not, it bobbled up in a way that made it hard for him to kick the ball in the back of the net. He whiffed. Just say he whiffed, man. African Soldier, thank you so much for your super chat as well. Says Arsenal have the second lowest XG, which teams have scored the seconded most goals in 3 games. Arsenal have the second lowest XG, which teams have scored the second most goals in 3 games. If you're talking about Arsenal have scored the second most goals, because I think, is that right though? Because Chelsea have the most goals, don't they? Or is it Liverpool? Yeah. We have the 3rd most goals. So But listen, if all you guys care about is if the ball gets in the back of the net, that's fine, but you do, if we were looking at another team that was in our situation, I think Arsenal fans, especially the Tacticos, would be desperate to point out the fact that they don't score a lot from open play because we all know it's weird. So, let's see. 4 out of 6 goals are from set pieces, bro. That's the point. It's not sustainable. Um, I don't know. Like, if you guys think it's sustainable and as long as the ball is in the back of the net, you're fine. But, yesterday we saw that it would have been nice to be able to, or not yesterday, 2 days ago, it would have been nice to be able to try to do something from open play because we were nullified on set pieces, mostly because of ourselves. So, because Saka wasn't there. But listen, I don't think Arteta is particularly worried about it either. I think if we could score all of our goals on set pieces, he would be fine. But I think we'd score more goals, which is pretty much my main point, is that if we could score way more goals from open play and also have set pieces, we would probably have a better chance of beating the smaller teams, winning trophies, we would have a better chance of actually doing the things that we want to do. But because we have like a huge blind spot in one area, we're so reliant on set pieces at times that it's kind of like, but I think what people are trying to insinuate is that, we're fine because we have the third most goals so far. But, would I have taken a 3-0 win? I would probably taken a 3-0 win against Leeds if we were able to score one goal against Liverpool and score one more against Manchester United. But that's pretty much how we are. We're going to struggle, in away from home at big grounds. And as long as we can score a lot of set pieces against Leeds and Sunderland and shit, people will be happy about it, but yeah. Bring in Glasner at the end of the season before United get him. Glasner is a really good coach. Not going anywhere with this coach, just hope Berta runs the report to Josh and cuts the sky. Chelsea scored 98% of their goals this season from set pieces. And I brought that up because I said that even though you guys have won 2 games, you're not playing well because most of your goals have come from set pieces. I hold the same energy. Chelsea aren't playing particularly well right now. They drew the game against Chelsea. They couldn't score, or not Chelsea, Crystal Palace. They had a similar problem to us where they couldn't break down a deep block, Um, and then against West Ham, they scored 3 goals from set pieces, which kind of inflated the score, whatever. And then they scored off of basically 2 set pieces, a penalty and, off a corner against Fulham when they were struggling. They're not playing well. They're not. So why would I sit up here and feel like we're actually playing well? Because I'm watching with my eyes. I'm watching us play and I'm watching them play. And I'm thinking both teams are struggling to break down teams and also score from open play, create chances from they actually create a lot of chances from open play, but score from open play. Because I think Chelsea have created 12 big chances, the most in the league so far. So they're pretty much, their issue is not creating big chances, it's putting it in the back of the net. So yeah, if I'm going to say that they're not playing well, then I also feel like we're not particularly playing well either. Let's see. It doesn't mean the manager deserves the sack. It means he needs to evolve a bit. He does need to evolve. We're in a period right now where there is no sacking Mikel. We know Mikel is not getting sacked. So, I think some people are just wanting to see the results of the season to see whether or not he wins a Champions League or Premier League so that they can start running their Arteta out. Because they're already Arteta out, so it is what it is. But with the manager, like, he's not going anywhere, especially like during the season. So my point is that he needs to evolve and he needs to do it quickly because he doesn't have that much time. We play our first Champions League game away in Spain in like 2 weeks or something like that. So the season has started. As much as we want to say that, like, oh, we need all this time and he needs to evolve now, and the Liverpool game was very much so par for the course. He went back to his big game away from home template. And the reason why it was less, it was less acceptable this time than it has been in the past is one, he didn't get the result. And two, he left good players on the bench. He didn't have the excuse like he did before that he didn't have any depth. He didn't have the excuse that he had to play Marino, Trossard, and Ethan front line. He had good players and he left them on the bench, so I think he needs to evolve, and he needs to evolve quickly because the season has started now. The games aren't going to get any easier from here, really, because in the next couple of games we have I know we have City, we have Newcastle, we have Nottingham Forest at home, and we have Athletic Bilbao away from home. So it's time to get to going. When are we going to expect him to evolve? He probably should have started to evolve a year ago when it was obvious that we were struggling, but they used injuries as an excuse, and so now we don't have the injury excuse necessarily because we have such depth, and we still are having some of the similar issues. So I'm an Arteta outer, but I give credit where credit is due. He has made us very solid defensively, but I agree we need to do more going forward. Evolve. What is you doing, mama? Leopards don't change their spots. We are in a win-win. I'm trying to stay in the now. I feel like that's why social joins. I know that we are going to be in this situation until May. And there's even a very real reality that if he doesn't win anything, nothing will change anyway. So I could just say nothing is going to change. Who cares? But then why would I have my channel? It doesn't make sense for me to sit here and just talk to you guys about, well, Arteta's not going to go and nothing is going to change. So fuck it. So I'm trying to stay in the now and more focus on what he needs to do in the near future rather than focusing so much on the fact that he probably does struggle to change and there's probably not a reality where he is going to leave. And so, you know what I mean? It doesn't make sense for me to just do that. I'm not an Arteta in or out. I am Arsenal. I don't want my team wasting their prime years with no big trophies. Gabriel and Saliba deserve Prem titles. We're the best team to have never won it. I stand on that. We've had 2 seasons where we had 2 very good opportunities to win it. And then there was another season where we also had a good opportunity, but we were injury ridden and we fell away. There's probably never been a team as good as us that hasn't touched any silverware or won the Premier League at all. So it's getting to the point where it's not looking good. He left them on the bench because he is afraid of being scored on. I feel like the players we have bought have mostly contributed to the success of our defense. We have a lot of talent there. These players aren't going to spend their prime finishing second. Arteta's in-game management is still questionable after 6 years. Liverpool won that game from a free kick produced from changes Slot made in the second half. I mean, Slot has, I don't know what to call it, but he just seems to have a good temperature on what the game needs. And so most of the time when he makes an in-game change, it changes things for the better and they seem to see the benefits of it. And he just acted quicker than Mikel. I think Arteta's in-game changes would have made a big impact as well because we saw it, but it was just too late. So he tends to get Arteta, he hasn't beat Slot yet. And I just have this thing where I think that Slot's going to have his number because Slot doesn't focus on, I hate it. Slot is more focused on, trying to win, and Arteta's focused on trying not to lose. And so I feel like whenever you play like that, you're bound to lose to a really good coach. I don't know if we can start calling Slot an elite coach yet because I know he only won 1 Prem. But he's starting to look like somebody that really knows what he's doing. He can really go toe-to-toe with anyone. I feel like the only manager that got the better of him was Luis Enrique. And he got the better of all the Prem coaches outside of Maresca. So Slot just seems to be able to get the best from his players, especially attacking-wise. They seem relaxed. They never seem like they're stressed no matter what situation they're in, whether they're at St. James's Park, getting battered, or playing up against a stout Arsenal team at home, and he's doing a really good job with them. And I don't necessarily feel like Arteta is doing the best he can with our attack right now, but that's not to say that Arteta hasn't done a really good job. He's so close. I just wish he'd find the balance between this defense and the attack. He needs to evolve. He needs to, I don't know if he just, whatever, it's like having a 4-1 result and having such drastic change after that result. I'm surprised that we haven't seen that same drastic change since then from some of the results that we've suffered since then. We haven't suffered a battering since then. I think the way that we are defensively, it's very rare that we're going to suffer a beating, but I don't think it should take a beating for you to change things. I think not being successful from silverware and being so close to it should make you want to do radical change as well. Slot is elite because he used Rubbish Jones, Elliott, and Nunez to win the league. If manager is using 20% of his power and keeping you up top 3, despite low XG, low chances, then it means his ceiling is high. His issue is to release the handbrake and get rid of the trauma. And when is he going to do that? Because we've been asking him to kind of do that for like a couple years now, Let's see. Lyrical Boxman says, genuinely what happened to Martin Odegaard's such potential not being realized? Defy the manager a little bit, Capitano. I will say that like a small win for me, it's just a small win for me. It's not really a big one because it's ultimately not that positive for us in the grand scheme. But small win for me is watching whenever we play without Martin and people seeing that nothing changes, like not from a tactical standpoint, not people act like if Martin is out of the team, then all of a sudden things will just knit together and we'll just start playing fast and guys will start playing more progressive. And because he's getting the ball, he's the one that's keeping us from moving fast. And he's the one that's not passing the ball forward and all this kind of stuff, only to be slapped in the face with more backwards and regressive passing. And if it's not clear to you by now that it's instruction, then I don't know. I don't know what needs to happen for you to get that. It's nobody is going to stay more true to the manager's instructions than the captain. And he does exactly what Arteta wants him to do. Of course, we'd love for him to just go off script, but the reason why Arteta has players like the ones that he has is because he knows they're not going to. He got rid of the Ozils and the Aubameyangs and these types that he knows are going to disrupt the dressing room and get factions and start having like disruption and stuff like that. He has a certain temperament of player because he understands that those players will follow him, right? And so these players are not passing backwards and being regressive and not being adventurous because they don't want to be. I just think that that's just the way that Arteta is coaching them, and that's clear because no matter who's out there, it happens. No matter who's out there, we get the same result. Saka wasn't out there yesterday, and we still saw a distinct desperation to go to the right-hand side and get it to the right wing because we know that that's the only way that we can attack. It's no surprise that whoever plays on the right wing, whether it's Madueke or Saka or Dowman, gets the ball the most because the whole system is built around avoiding the left-hand side like the plague. I don't really it's like Arteta has these guys trained to the nth degree. They're doing exactly what he wants them to do. And nobody is going to be more loyal to the manager's instructions than the captain. So, Arteta's captaincy is about carrying out his instructions on the pitch. It's not about yelly shouty. It's not about, doing those types of things. It's about carrying out them instructions, baby. That's all it's really about, man. I think captaincy is a lot to do with being the spokesperson, talking to the ref these days, to be honest. It's really not what people think it is. I think people think that being the captain is about, like, of course you want to lead the team and do that kind of stuff, but Odegaard is just carrying out Mikel's instructions. That's basically what it's about, Curtis Jones, with his energy and intensity, was creating problems for our midfield. And what does Arteta do? Put on an unfit Odegaard who is absolutely non-existent in breaking up play. I mean, he didn't need to come on and break up play. He came on and him and Eze were helping us get forward and actually trying to attack. We didn't need to break up play. We needed to go score a goal. Once Odegaard and Eze came on, I think about 5 minutes after that, they scored. So why did we need to break up play? I genuinely feel like Odegaard and Eze were out there for about 5 minutes before they scored the screamer. So why did Odegaard need to break up play? Genuinely, his only role once he got onto the pitch, along with Eze, was to get us into the final third, and that was the only time we had looked like scoring. So I don't really understand that point, to be honest. You know, the only time we had some off the wall football was Rice's free kicks where he said, "Screw the coach, I'm slapping it." So yeah, um we need to, I feel as though, probably let go of this whole like Odegaard is making us pass slow and shit, because you didn't see any difference when he was out as well. He played for 20 minutes and, you know, ultimately I've been telling you guys that for about a year now, but I guess because certain people say that it's his fault, then people just kind of pile on. But no matter who's out there, we pass slow. You know, it was so funny watching people say that once Odegaard came off against Leeds, we started playing so much better. And like Ethan was so good. And then there was other people saying that he was terrible. And I'm like, probably because the truth was somewhere in the middle. It's just weird, you know, but whatever. You know, you're so right. That's why Marino was drafted in, understands managers' instructions, and can dictate the team on the field. When Ian 22 learns, he will trust him in these games. And, you know, ultimately, like, I feel like with Marino, I understand that he was going to do exactly what the manager wants him to do, and that's fine. But I think the problem with that is his skill set is so based around non-creativity. He's really kind of like, I would say this is, I'm not even trying to be mean, but Marino is our worst midfielder. He's our worst midfielder, full stop. You know, he's probably the worst in every single position that he can play. If he was going to play in the six, he's worse than Rice and Zubi. If he was going to play at left center mid, he's not as good as Rice or Eze, who can play there, or even MLS, who can probably play there. He's not better than Odegaard or Ethan, really, you know, in the 10. So I think, you know, the problem with Marino is not that it's not that I can't get with the fact that Marino was out there because he wanted grown-ups out there so he could put out this plan. The problem is the plan was to be negative and to nick a draw. And Marino is just, he's so high on Arteta's list, and he's so much lower on ours because he's not good, you know, and I think that that's like a red flag, that Arteta tends to value more average players over the more talented ones, and that's why he gets the results that he does in big games, because he reverts to average players who will follow directions rather than more talented players that will probably break the game open, but maybe you'll have to defend transitions a little bit more. Maybe there'll be a little bit more openness. You know, Marino was pretty much only out there because he, you know, was going to defend better probably than Ethan and Eze. That was the only reason why he was out there. It was negative. You know, that's pretty much all it really comes down to. Marino is our worst midfielder by the standards in which you want a midfielder to do things. He's not particularly great off the ball, really. You know, he fouls a lot. He gets beat quite a bit unless the spaces are really, really small. He's not really a good anything. You know, he really, you know, Marino, Arteta is obsessed with control. He is obsessed with control. Harsh Marino is a Spanish international. He's a good player. It's all the tactics. I think he's still our worst midfielder. You can be a Spanish international and still be our worst midfielder. I think if you play for your national team, you play for the Spanish national team, you're a good player. But there's a world where you're a good player, but you're our worst midfielder. And the things that make you who you are in opposition to what would make us dangerous. And I think that's what Marino is all about. And also with international football, I think to a certain extent, it's a lot more open, it's slower. So Marino gets more time on the ball. And he doesn't get time on the ball in the Prem. Marino is probably fine when we play in Europe, but when we play in the Prem, nah. He's good at false nine. He is really good at false nine, but he's not in midfield. You know, I think having him in a position where he's kind of like Kai in that way. He's not somebody that you want in midfield because he doesn't create football. He's not somebody that's going to get on the ball on the half turn and move forward and, you know, pick a pass out or anything. If he could do a wall pass, he'll do it. But when they're up front in the false nine, I think the job is easier. Marino is perfect. Mikel player, tall, stiff, headers, runs long distance, shoddy on the ball. He's a good finisher. That's what he does in Spain as well. It's clear to see Marino as a midfielder doesn't working for us, but as false nine, he's very good, which is the same thing with Kai Havertz. Both of those players to me are good players, but they're not the type of players that you would want starting for you in a title winning side. You know, I don't think they start for any other top 6 team, you know, or let's call them title challenging teams because we know some of our top 6 rivals are not title contenders. So like neither one of Marino or Kai Havertz would start for Liverpool. Neither one of Kai Havertz or Marino would start for City, you know, so yeah. That's what I was going to bring up as well. Let me find it. I had receipts and I was like, I'm going to bring this up during the show. And I now remember because we're talking about Marino. Let me see if I can find it. See if I can find it. There's so much shit going on. I'm trying to look in my DMs and see if not, I know I saved it. I'll just read it to you guys. It's dark. That's what I'm saying. I know it, like when it comes to Marino, I know what I'm watching because I remember last season, everybody was like, oh, well, when Declan plays in the 6, we're so much worse. And I'm like, that's because he has to play with Marino. If Declan is playing in the 6, that means that Party's not there, which means that the next person in line is Marino. And if you have to play with Marino, you're in trouble. So Arsenal won 1 of 8 competitive matches in which Marino started in midfield, a 3-1 win over Brentford, and lost the others. Example, 1-0 versus West Ham, i.e. a win percentage of 12.5%. You guys need me to read it out for you again? I can put it on the screen if I can figure out how to get it up there. This is what I'm saying. When people are talking about Marino, I'm like, be fucking for real. Like, listen. It matches the eye test. It matches the eye test, you know? It's not like when you're watching Marino, you feel like you're watching something good, right? Let's see. It's dark, guys. I was like, what the fuck is this stat? What a dark stat, man. I'll put it up for you guys. It's dark. It's dark as fuck. Mm-mm. 1 of 8 competitive matches. 1 of 8. This is why I was never talking like when I'm watching Declan Rice in the 6, I'm like, because he doesn't get to play with a left center mid. Declan Rice's life at the 6 has been either playing with Kai Havertz at left center mid or Marino. So that always tainted my view of how he plays in the 6 for Arsenal because I'm like, he's basically playing with one hand tied behind his back. This box crasher, like big, stiff, tall guy that should be playing in the 9, Arteta needs to drop that because this should alone tell you not to play him. This alone should tell you not to play him. Seriously, like no funny business. Like it is kind of funny, but like no funny business. Seriously, he shouldn't be playing midfield for us. If he plays for us, he needs to be a backup striker. That's where he thrives for Arsenal. That's where he thrives for Arsenal. He does not thrive for Arsenal in midfield. And to be honest, like any version of the midfield that includes Kai Havertz or Marino is a losing midfield. Like it just, it cannot. We cannot. I could listen. I can try to find the stat. I probably won't be able to find it now, but let me write that down so I can try to find it for the next show. But I would, for what year? Because we know that the highest win percentage in 22-23, we know what that was, and we know the highest win percentage in 23-24 was Declan Rice, Jorginho, and Odegaard. Last season, I couldn't tell you, because everything was so fucked up. But if you want to, let's see. Highest win rate. And I would imagine last season it was Declan Rice, Partey, and Odegaard. But we didn't get to see it very often because there was always somebody out or something going on. Odegaard was out for a long time. So Trossard played there sometimes. Kai Havertz played in there a couple of times. Jorginho played in there sometimes. And also then we were missing right back. So then Partey was at right back. So last season it was really like broken up. But I would guess that it's probably was Partey, Declan Rice, and Odegaard. But it wasn't Marino. I'll tell you that. I remember when Declan saved Marino against United, game away from his mistake last season. Lord, there was there's something about him in midfield that's just like a no. It is definitely Partey, Odegaard, and Rice. Definitely. I think you could just cast your mind back to the wins that we had, and you know what midfield played the season prior. The whole back end of the last that whole back end of 23-24 was Jorginho, Rice, and Odegaard. So I would imagine that it was that. And then we know who it was the season before. So yeah, but this is dark, Marino. This is dark, and remember Marino started at home against PSG in midfield. Do you realize that there was no chance in hell we were winning that game based on the statistic? Like, it actually was, very likely, probably a 99% chance that we would lose that game just simply based on the fact that he was in the game in midfield. Arteta claims to be a data nerd. Yes, he has this information but failed to act on it. Marino doesn't work in midfield at this point. He should be considered a backup striker. I agree. He can do a job up there for us, but not in midfield. Another poor signing by Edu. Berta saved us for good. Also, I do want to touch on the Berta stuff as well, because some quotes had come out today that obviously people were not happy about, and I just didn't really understand. I didn't get it. I don't. Sometimes I don't get the fan base sometimes, because I'm like, you guys worry yourself with things that you don't need to worry about. Case in point, worrying yourself about the fact that Berta had a preference for a different number 6 than Zubamendi. I mean, as if your sporting director should not have other options. What are we thinking? I don't really understand. There's a couple of things. There was a couple of quotes. I'll try to pull up the ones that I can find. But let's see. I'll read some of them up for you, but let's see. They're suggesting. All right. So the Zubamendi deal was already pretty much done by the time that Berta got here. But Gunnerblog had put out an article today saying that the framework of Martin Zubamendi's deal was already in place before Andrea Berta arrived. If he had been in charge earlier, he would have pushed for other preferred options in the 6th role. And somehow this was like a big fucking deal. Oh my gosh, he wouldn't have chosen Zuby. Who else would he have chosen? Oh my gosh, he would have chosen Conor Gallagher. First of all, calm the fuck down. Your sporting director is always going to have other options. Our old sporting director used to push Kia clients on us every time that Arteta asked him, well, who do you want? He would say Kia client. He would pick out Kia's little book and get somebody. His backup option for Zubamendi would have been Douglas Luiz. So sporting directors always have different options. So like, why are you guys so upset by that? And I think also what's happening as well is people that wanted Sesko and didn't want Gyokeres are starting to build a narrative around Berta sabotaging Arteta with bad signings. So that little tidbit is somehow like justifying or giving them a little bit of like a receipt of, yeah, but Berta wanted Gyokeres and now we have Gyokeres. We would have had Sesko today if we had been able to agree the fee with RB Leipzig. Berta gave Arteta everything he wanted that he could. The only thing he couldn't give him was Sesko, but he tried. We went for Sesko first. Berta is not sabotaging Arteta. Please do not start the narrative. You guys are worried because, we lost a game and we didn't look good. And so you're trying to figure out a way where Berta is sabotaging him. And, he brought Gyokeres and Arteta wanted Sesko and we would have been so much better if we got Sesko. Stop. Just calm the fuck down for 1 minute. I see what you guys are doing and it's not going to work because we know Berta gave Arteta absolutely everything that he wanted. The only reason why we didn't get Sesko is because we couldn't agree the fee, right? So that was something that they freaked out about. Now, I saw somebody say that he would probably have gotten us Conor Gallagher. Why are we acting like Berta is some sort of loser? I know that Berta brought Conor Gallagher to Atletico, but his preferred option for us was Bruno Guimaraes. When Berta first came in, we were linked to Bruno. Our option, it said Andrea Berta is keen to sign Bruno Guimaraes along with Zubamendi. It ended up being the case that because we already had Zubamendi, we didn't go for Bruno Guimaraes, but he had some sort of like release clause or something where we would have had to pay like upwards of like 80 million or something for him. I would have taken Bruno Guimaraes. If you would have offered me one or the other, I would have taken either one. Let's not sit here and act like Bruno G is some sort of bum. You guys don't like him because he elbowed Jorginho in the head. But outside of that, if he's your bastard, you like him. If he's not your bastard, you hate him. That's just the truth. So Berta wasn't going to bring some bum up in here. He wasn't going to bring some bum up in here, But the thing is, like, hold that as saying Guimaraes doesn't fit the team. I think he doesn't fit the personality of the team in terms of fitting us. Like, he could play for us. Guimaraes is a really good player. He's one of the best midfielders in the league. You take away, the tackles and stuff like that. He just doesn't have the same personality as the rest of this team, which Berta doesn't seem desperate to be beholden to a personality. And I think Arteta is beholden to a personality. He likes nicer guys. He likes nicer players. I don't think Berta cares because if Berta didn't care, he would not have. If he cared, he would not have suggested Gyokeres because Gyokeres is also not a personality fit for this team. And I think we need different personalities because the personalities that we have are kind of soft, So Bruno G is a really good player, and I don't think that that's like some bum that Berta was bringing to the table. Now, another quote that came out was, when it became apparent that Thomas Partey would leave the club, Berta was insistent they needed an oven-ready, experienced replacement. That contributed to the decision to sign 31-year-old Norgard from Brentford over the likes of Sevilla's Lucien Agume. I'll be real, I don't really care about this because he's a backup and Norgard will be gone in like a year or two. So, but some people were like, here we go. Like, he's setting up the team with all these old players. We got him for like 11 million, and it ended up being the case that, it didn't seem like it before Eze, but we did spend a lot less on some of our backup signings, and it ended up being beneficial to us in the long run. So I don't really have an issue with that. I didn't see why people were having an issue with that. We could still go get Lucien Agume. I actually think we should go get Ayoub Bouadi on a pre-agreement. He would be more of, I feel like, a player for us, but you could still go get a young DM today. You're not going to lose out on some young kid. There's always young talent out there. Why we're acting like Norgard is blocking a pathway for a young DM when we're not in search of a starting one feels like people are just trying to manufacture, like you're saying, beef with Berta. Like we just went through the transfer window and decided that shit was like a 9. It was this really good transfer window, and all of a sudden people want to pull it apart. I think the only thing with Norgard is that he's been injured since he's been here, but it really is not that deep because we know that even if Zubamendi doesn't play and we need a DM, we can just slide Declan Rice over there. Now we have Eze, so we could play Eze at left center mid. We're fine, so just relax, calm your titties. And the last one that I thought I saw was about Juan Garcia. I thought I had heard the last of that name in this fan base, but it was something about Berta didn't really want to spend the money on Juan Garcia because he was expensive for a backup goalkeeper or somebody that wouldn't start right away. And so when Barcelona got involved, he was more than happy to allow that deal to fall away. Justified. And also at a certain point, Juan Garcia just wanted to be a star. He wanted to be the number 1. Like, sources close to Juan Garcia have indicated there was no contact from Berta, which makes sense because when he got there, all of a sudden, we weren't linked to him anymore. He wasn't an option anymore. So yeah, Berta's influence can be seen across. He was always wary of sanctioning a 25 million euro move from Juan Garcia. When Garcia chose Barcelona instead, Berta was happy to pivot to Kepa and his £5 million release clause. Listen, my sporting director, not focusing on goalkeepers and DMs and going to get the real business done, getting Eze in, getting Gyokeres in. He didn't care about that. He also, for people that are bitching and moaning and complaining, he got you Mascara. He watched a lot of the players that we got that were of Berta, that Berta really wanted, or the 2 players that Berta really wanted, were players that he was scouting for Atletico Madrid. And those 2 players were Hincapié and Mascara. Hincapié and Mascara. Mascara is one of our best signings of the summer. We got him for 13 million. You guys wanted to spend 30-something million on Mark Gahey. My sporting director. I never had a problem with the Kepa signing or the Norgard signing, because I just was like, we just need their backups. I had a problem with them, the Madueke signing because it was a big outlay. It's obvious why that signing was unpopular at the time. Don't need to go over it. But for me, Berta is that guy because he prioritized the types of signings that are going to make the biggest difference for our season. Replacing Raya is not going to change the outcome of the season if you're spending the money on that. And for some reason, you can't spend the money elsewhere. Now, maybe we could have gotten Juan Garcia and still spent the money. But I don't think that he wouldn't have had an issue spending the money if we had it like that. Because Berta spent a shit ton of money this summer without selling. He knew what our limits were. And I think he understood that Mascara signing, that Norgard signing, and that Kepa signing, the backup DM, the backup goalkeeper, backup center back, had to be cheap. They had to be cheap. They had to come in under a certain amount to make sure that we could get everything else we wanted to get. Right? And so the goalkeeper just wasn't important, guys. It just wasn't important. I know you guys love a goalkeeper. I get it. The tactical part of this fan base loves a goalkeeper. But get over it. We needed attackers. If it was up to them, we would have the same exact attack that we have. But we would have Juan Garcia because that's what the difference is. No, it's not. My sporting director why people are fabricating beef with Berta, because he prioritized things that matter, got us a bunch of good players, and got Arteta everything he needed. I will never know, because he had a different idea of the number 6. And oh, by the way, the number 6 that he wanted was one of the best midfielders in the league. Oh my gosh, take him to prison. Come on. He's done a fabulous job. And I feel like because we lost that game, people are looking for any reason or any way to shift the blame onto somebody else. And they're sowing like early seeds against Berta. But everybody knows that Arteta got absolutely everything that he needs this season to win something. So we're not doing that this season. Gunner Blog is the reason he stirs up drama. Grim Reaper, ignore him. I mean, he's mad because somebody else left. I mean, I don't think he's been the same since. Imagine the options Edu would have had for us this summer. Thank Lord we had Berta instead. If you have any insights or information about the whereabouts of these files, it would be greatly appreciated. What files? We have a good transfer window this summer. Berta build a good squad for Arteta, so I don't understand the criticism of him. It feels like they're trying to shift the narrative a little bit, to Berta, like he's some sort of like, and then somebody said, and I was like, I'm so glad that you said this, because it puts even more pressure on Mikel and puts even less attention on Berta, was that they were basically saying that Berta is a deal maker and Berta is a deal maker and he doesn't pick the players necessarily. Like there's other people that pick the players, but he has players that he's been watching for a while and he suggests them, like Mascara, and then they get, signed off by other people within the club. And Hincapié, because obviously Hincapié also got a sign of approval from Arteta through Xabi Alonso. So that was kind of like one of those where Berta was like, well, what about Hincapié? Been looking at him for a while. Arteta goes and talks to Xabi Alonso. They work together. The deal gets done. But if he's a deal maker and he's not in charge of talent and he's not identifying the players, then you saying that as some sort of slight on Berta only means that there's more pressure on Arteta. Because if Berta's not picking the players and he's just getting the deals done, then this is Mikel's team. They don't understand that the things, the narratives and the little like gotchas that they're trying to set up for Berta is only making it more difficult for Mikel. The spotlight is firmly on the manager and there's no way to move it around. Berta has given Mikel everything that he needs. It's the best window that we've had in our history in the Emirates era. It just is, so we just, I don't really understand why that article got so much energy, why Berta is being thrown under the bus, or, it's being, it just feels like they're trying to, and I'm not with it. Berta's got better talent ID than Mikel. Some people think Mikel's talent ID is really good. And I do think that he does have good talent ID for certain positions, but other things I think he misses it. And it's not even so much the talent per se, it's the way he applies the talent. I think if he just played players in their natural position more and he played to their strengths more, the talent wouldn't look so bad. I don't actually think Arteta has bad talent ID. I don't. I think he has some hits and some misses, but I think for the most part, the players that we've been linked to, that we know Mikel was pushing for, and the players that we got have talent. It's the way that the talent is being applied. So, yeah. You know what I mean? So, yeah, Arteta bought, we know Trossard wasn't really his thing, but for all intents and purposes, Declan Rice is one of the best midfielders in the world. Is his talent being applied properly? I don't think so, but is that is that Declan Rice and him not being talented, or is that Mikel? So I think his talent idea is not the best I've ever seen, but I also don't think it's bad. I just think it's the way that the talent is being applied. I don't think all these players are as bad as, we think. But Willian was not just an Arteta signing. We know how Willian came about. Willian came about because he was a Kia client. I think Pablo Marie also was a Kia client. Early days, a lot of the people that came through the door were more Kia clients. So Arteta really got a wrangle on things. I actually give him more credit for the Odegaard, Ben White, Ramsdale window, I feel like that's where we saw more of Arteta's influence, like where he told Edu no about Emerson, or what is his name, Ederson Royale or Emerson Royale, and we ended up with Tommy instead. You know, he's had some hit and misses, but I don't actually think that Arteta's talent ID is so bad. And you can smell an Edu signing a mile away. Willian was an Edu signing. He was an Edu signing. He's a Kia client, you know, so that's not talent ID. Arteta's not looking at Willian and saying, I think I can, that's a hidden gem out there. You know, that was a Premier League proven player that was meant to come in because we didn't have any money. We needed to bring in somebody on a free. We only had money for Partey and Gabrielle. And so we bought in Willian because that was a Kia client and we can get him on the low. And it didn't work, you know? So I don't really, like Ola saying Willian, Pablo Marie, Cedric, David Luizin, they were all Kia Draption specials. I don't really, like Arteta's talent ID for me is Ben White, you know, Odegaard, Tommy, like players like that, where you could just tell that those are Arteta signings, because most of Arteta signings are the same. They're, you know, most of them, like Odegaard's not really that versatile, but they're versatile. They're kind of athletic. They have somewhat of a good technical level, you know, things like that. So, yeah, Willian will always have the Fulham game. The Forest Zinchenko loan with wages paid stinks of Edu. That's the level of fraudulent he operates with. He is the one behind Sterling, which is why nobody met Sterling outside of the of Soba Training Center that night. It was just him, because I think Arteta was like, "This is your shit," you know. So, yeah, I don't think Arteta's talent ID is poor. I don't think it's elite, you know, which I wouldn't expect that from him. I expect there to be experts in this, you know, under this umbrella at Arsenal. And I think that's something that needs to be beefed up, which they did say that Berta's, you know, team is going to grow. I'm a little bit disappointed that they didn't go with the Tognazi guy that was like the youth recruitment guy at Juve, you know, but because that's who Berta wanted. They went with Jay Ellis and they gave him a raise or something instead. But they're saying that Berta is going to start adding to his team soon. And so there'll hopefully be some experts, because if Berta's more of a deal-making man and Arteta's the coach, there needs to be people that are experts in scouting talent, younger and more like, you know, proven. And so I don't really expect Arteta's talent ID to be amazing. That's not what his job is supposed to be. I want him to be amazing at the job that he's supposed to be doing. If I'm being honest, it's Arteta's team. He wanted Madueke, Gyokeres, Eze, Mascara, and Hincapié. It's time for him to do a better job on the pitch, because Berta did all the jobs as a sporting director. To be honest, it wasn't really what we planned. That was just crazy. Kia facilitated the Odi move, if I remember right, unless that was all paper talk. I think Arteta really wanted Odegaard, though. I think because we had the option between Buendia and Odegaard, and we went with Odegaard. And I think that's because Arteta really rated him. And at that time, getting Odegaard from Real Madrid was a big deal, because we were outside of European competition, and we were able to get somebody that, you know, was still high, like very high. Up until last season, Odegaard was really highly rated. Like, let's not change the narrative. Like, getting Odegaard from Real Madrid, even though he wasn't good enough for Real Madrid, it was kind of like how Spurs fans feel about getting Xavi Simons right now. It's like the exact same. Or they're like, this is one of the best signings in our history. Like, they're acting like this is their first bad B, you know? So that's how it was with Odegaard in this new era where we were outside of European competition and we were struggling to recruit. We had to really, you know, find the talent elsewhere, right? We couldn't compete with the big teams for the big players. And so I think Odegaard was really wanted by Mikel, and I think that it says a lot that he's the captain and all that kind of stuff as well. But Kia helped that too. You know, Kia definitely helped that. Spurs are ugly. They date ugly women. Oh my gosh. Berta's friend they interviewed said he keeps extensive files on players he is looking into. For people who say he doesn't identify talent himself are wrong. We initially got Odegaard on loan. It was far from a gamble. I think the Emi Martinez sale went towards sealing the Odegaard move. It was a long time ago. I feel like we forget what it felt like, but we're not like Manchester United when they're outside of European competition and they could get Cunha and Mbumo. And those are not Champions League winning players. But even when, Man United were shit, they were able to get Casemiro. We would never be able to do that, So I just think that, getting Odegaard at that point was kind of a big deal back then because we got him on loan. He was from Real Madrid. We weren't really in the picture for the bigger players, So yeah, it was different back then, but now we can compete for some of the better players. And I'm hoping that Berta can, if this is what his first window can bring, just think what he can do in the future. And I've been extremely impressed by the window. I think the only bad point would probably be the sales, but I'm willing to give him another window with better assets to maybe sell, because Diluted spoke about it on Twitter the other day. And I do think he's right, even though it's uncomfortable, that within the next 12 to 18 months, the next players that are going to leave this club are going to be players that are a part of this team for real. There are no more Sambies, really. There are no more Zinchenko. There's no more, Tommy. There's no more players like that. The next players that are probably going to go are hopefully players that are happy to move on because they're not a part of the plans, and not players that we're desperate to keep, like Saliba or Saka. But I think we're looking at, a pivotal moment where we have two big players that have 2 years left on their deal, and you have players like Martinelli and Jesus and maybe even Ben White, that may be movable. Is that bad to say? And that's not to say that I'm trying to push them out the door. I'm just saying that, Kai will have 2 years left on his deal. I think Odegaard will as well. Now, if Arteta's still here, they both get renewed. If Odegaard and Kai Havertz, or if Arteta's still here, both of them get renewed. That's Havertz is, like I told you guys earlier, Marino and Havertz are much higher in Arteta's thinking than they are for us. So but if you have a new manager, maybe those things change, so it's next summer is going to be huge for us, not because we'll probably have a bunch of incomings, but we're going to actually see players that have been here for a long time that we love and care about, for the most part, that have been a part of this project, are probably going to be going, so no matter, a lot of people have turned on Martinelli, but Martinelli still has a lot of support in this fan base. If and when he goes, I think it's a big one. I think it's a big one. I can see Havertz, Jesus, Martinelli, Trossard, Marino, and White out by next season. Arteta regularly destroys the value of players by icing them out, coupled with the silly wages that they're on. But this is why next summer is going to be important, because I don't actually think that, outside of Trossard, I don't think the other players that are on Marlon's list will be iced out. So Jesus, if he's fit, he gets playing time. That's how it's always been under Mikel. Jesus fit, plays, period. Martinelli, if he's fit, he's a part of the fabric. He gets playing time no matter what. Marino, we've already seen that he's important enough to play in a 6-pointer away from home at Anfield. So, and White, he's not going to be iced out either, because when he's fit, he'll step in for Timber as well. So these players, if we want to move them on next summer, will have had a decent amount of minutes this summer. This season, that's why it's so much different than past summers, where we're talking about players that have been iced out for maybe 2 seasons, the Fabios, the Sambies, the Zinchenkos. We're talking about players that are like the immediate backup to somebody in this team. So I think it's going to be different. I don't necessarily think it's going to be Havertz or Odegaard, because I do think that Arteta will still be here, and those 2 players are key for him. But Jesus, Martinelli, I'm feeling White too, potentially. So, and definitely Trossard. I think Ben White will stay. Arteta likes him, even if Timber will play more for us. Let's see how the season promulgates with Ben White, because if he can't maintain any level of fitness, we're gonna have to cut ties this coming summer. We shouldn't give it another summer. Ben White is somebody that I feel like is really good. He was really, really good for us, but he's now, dealing with injury problems. And even if you keep him for another season, he'll be like 28, 29 or whatever. There's probably this is probably the last summer that you're going to be able to sell him for a decent amount if you want to. And so, yeah, like especially with Mascara coming in, Mascara's already been used at right back. I could see a White sale, if he's injury prone this season or can't come up to a level, where he looks like he was a couple seasons ago. So we'll see. We need to win something this season. The long-term players deserve a trophy. Sounds like a big squad, so no excuses for Arteta. Really excited for next summer, Rodrigo or Barcola. It goes back to Arteta tactics. We played quality football 23-24 season. Odegaard's friendship group is going to get ripped apart. Wow. People hate the friendship group. I don't really have a problem with it, but players don't stay forever and things change, the only way that we're going to get better at selling is if we sell players when they actually still have value. And I think that's the thing, that if people would view a player and if they still have value, they don't understand why you would sell. And I'm like, it's just simple supply and demand. If the reason why you get players or you sell things on a clearance rack is because they have little to no value, but if you sell something that's still valuable, you can still get a good amount for it, but it has to be something that you're willing to part with. And so that's the hard thing with Arsenal, is it feels like they keep players until they have little to no value. Like Yo-Yo said, they've been literally iced out for maybe 2 or 3 summers or seasons. So people already know that you don't want them. And when you want something, like nobody wants something that nobody else wants. That goes with almost anything in life. Like, this is the reason why women are more attracted to men that have wives or are married or whatever, because they want something that somebody else has. Even, do you guys get what I'm saying? So like women will pine after men that are in relationships or are married, not because they want to break up a happy home, but because that man is of value, because somebody else wants him, right? And so I feel like we miss that point with sales, because it's like, well, he still has value. And it's like, yeah, he still has value, but is he valuable enough where you could not see yourself parting with him and life going on? And I think we only have a couple players will be fatal if we lost them. It is an example. It's a good example. And it's true. Nobody wants something that nobody else has or nobody else wants, people want things that other people want. And so that's why you get to a clearance rack and you look at the stuff and you look at it and you're like, I don't want none of this, but it's cheap as fuck, so you're only going to sell that for like what, $5, so yeah, I think we have to get to the point where we're comfortable selling players that still have value and we can see them still being used in the squad, but it's not fatal if they leave, and I think Martinelli is a good example of that. And he was actually a good example of it this summer. I think we've fucked it up. I think he's going to be hard to sell next summer, but it is what it is. But listen, let's go ahead and get out of here. We've been talking for 2.5 hours, but I planned on talking for a long time anyway. I just want to remind you guys that on Thursday, I'll be out of town. I'm going out of town for funeral, but I'll be back on Sunday, but there's no game, so you won't miss me anyway. So essentially, tomorrow's show will be the last show of the week. So just to keep you guys on with that. Make sure you guys are following me on Instagram. I put up a new video about my favorite signings of the summer. I gave you guys a little bit of a preview of it yesterday, but if you guys weren't here yesterday, please go check that out and support it, share it, save it, those kind of things, so that the video gets more views. And yeah, make sure you guys are, liking the video, subscribing to the channel, all that kind of stuff. And I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye, guys.